Cashflow Diary Podcast, episode 533.
Welcome to yet another exciting episode of the Cashflow Diary Podcast, the podcast that teaches you insider tips, tactics, and strategies for creating leverage streams of cash flow into your life. Learn from top-performing entrepreneurs, business owners, investors, and thought leaders from across the globe as they share their secrets to success. Like what you learn on this and other Cashflow Diary podcast episodes? Go to learninvestingnow.com and sign up to receive powerful tips and information that will help you succeed as an entrepreneur and investor. Now, here's your host, investor, entrepreneur, business owner, educator, speaker, author, and master facilitator of Robert Kiyosaki's cash flow game, Jay Massey.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Cashflow Diary Podcast. I'm your host, Jay Massey, and I'm glad that you are here today because when we all get started in life, in business, we are all given a certain set of circumstances that we encounter. We tend to call that, the beginning, our story. And oftentimes it is framed in such a way to where there's lots of challenges in front of us. And we are now given the opportunity. Are we going to overcome them? What are we going to do about it? And many of you know that my story and how we started squatting in bank-owned property and dealing with a whole bunch of medical challenges and technically being homeless and all this other stuff. But what's interesting is that I'm not the only one. In fact, there are many individuals who are given challenges at the beginning, and it's what you choose to do with those challenges that often determines who you become. I have with me today the author of Homeless to Billionaire, Andres Pira, but most importantly, he is known for being a very excellent real estate developer over in Asia, Thailand, Phuket. What I'm excited about is that you and I are going to be able to listen, we're going to be able to learn, and we're going to be able to understand some of the inner workings of cash flow, how to build something that's bigger than you and I, bigger than ourselves, bigger than the original idea, but most importantly, something that has the ability to change lives and, dare I say it, a country? Now, here's what we're going to do today. We're going to ask him lots of questions. We're going to find out about his story, but what I want you to do is to listen for the lessons that's going to help you take your next step on your journey. So do me a favor. Let's get ready to listen, learn, and love Andres Pira. Andres, how you doing?
I am very good, Jay. Thanks you for having me here.
I am glad that you are able to make the time and are willing to share the knowledge. Now, this being your first time here, I have to ask you the same question I tend to ask everybody else the first time that they're here. Are you ready?
Sure. Go ahead.
I tend to look at today's entrepreneurs a lot like yesterday's superheroes. Like Batman, Robin, Wonder Woman, Superman, etc. You get the idea. Because I think entrepreneurs and superheroes have a lot in common. For example, as an entrepreneur, occasionally I can envision myself running around town, using our products and services, and saving customers one sale at a time. And yes, I'm probably wearing a tight and some cape and a cape at that moment. Also, like a superhero, an entrepreneur has a beginning. So if you take Spider-Man, for example, there was a time where he was just a kid going to school, doing his thing. And then one day he gets bit by a spider, discovers that he's got a special superhuman ability, and now he has to choose whether to use it for good or for evil. So my question to you is as follows. Before the 19 companies you currently have, before the hundreds of employees, before 16 years of real estate development, before even the 3 projects that you are currently working on at this particular moment in time, what we want to know is, who is Andres Pira?
Oh, well, thanks for that great introduction, Jay. Well, like you mentioned, I'm based in Thailand. I'm a real estate developer, been awarded several times for my resorts, condominiums, residential developments, and commercial buildings that I've been doing over 16 years. So for the moment, we're building 1,700 units across Asia and Thailand. And that's where we are today.
Yeah, but how did it start? Like before this? Like who is the Andres before the Andres? We know that. We can look that up online. What's the story we can't find out?
Well, before everything started, I was using my mindset in a different way. And like, I love your comparison with Spider-Man, and it's almost the same kind of story. You realize that you're much more powerful than you currently think you are, and when you learn how to extract those energies and also your powers with your mind, you can create so much more than you really think you can. So I was not always that person, but I learned how to create and visualize and go for the things I want and use that power to materialize everything that you want to be, do, or have.
So take me on this journey, if you will. What would you say was the first time that you said you weren't always that person? How did that person get this person we know today? How did he become born? How did he come into being? What was like the challenge, or for lack of a better way of putting it, what was that spider bite moment where you realized it's time to go to the next level, or that you had more to give than what you were currently doing?
That would be when I hit completely rock bottom, and I was actually homeless in Thailand before I even got my first job. I was sleeping away every day, single day on a beach in Thailand, and I didn't have anyone to reach out to. And I was given a gift. I would say that was my spider bite that I got, and that was a self-development book on how to control your mind, control your emotions, and execute them to materialize things. So that when I understood the power of the mind, when I got my spider bite, is when I started to try it, execute it, and see the evidences that it works. I mean, Spider-Man, when he got the bite, he had to train and develop it, and he got better and better. And it was the same with me when I discovered the power of the mind.
Interesting. So let me ask you this question. You said you were homeless on the beach. There's a lot of people who are like, okay, how bad could it really been? It's a beach, man. A lot of us are trying to spend more time on the beach.
Sure. Well, I mean, when you're on the beach and you can't eat and you can't shower and you don't, and you're owning the whole world and everyone you know and family back home, and you're too proud and you feel ashamed to tell people that you're homeless. I mean, that's not a very pleasant environment either. Yes, you might be sleeping on a beach and there might be hot weather, blue oceans, but if you look at it in general, if you don't have food, you don't have relationships, and you're too afraid and shamed and feel bad about really failed in life, and you can't even take a proper shower. That's not a pretty good environment to be in anyway.
Yeah, I get that. And this is good because, see, I know there's a number of entrepreneurs listening right now who in their journey, they probably encountered an obstacle, maybe in a huge setback. And they're feeling some of the things like you just said, afraid and shamed and just not willing to admit that, I had a bad moment here, and now it's time to figure out what to do next. So my question to you becomes, what was it specifically? You said you were given a gift. What was it in that gift that gave you the courage, if you will, to try again?
Yeah. Well, that gift was a self-development book, and what they teach in this book is different principles. But the one that struck me most is that whatever you want in life, make sure to create it in your mind at first. And I mean, we heard it before, and most people say, I don't believe in that shit. And I was the same when I got this gift. I was frustrated because I needed money, not a book, because that wouldn't help me anywhere. And I started to read this book, and I started to practice this principle just to disprove it, because I really didn't believe in it. But I started to get the similar results as they were actually teaching me. So that's when I started to understand. And what I say to most people, that at least try it and don't listen to others why it shouldn't work and stuff, or at least try it yourself, because we always judge about things, but it's only ourselves, if we try certain things, that we'll know if it works or not. So that's one of the key things to do it. And that spider bite was to start visualize things that you want in life. And most people, they start to visualize that $1 million, or having that dream car, or having that penthouse, or having that perfect relationship. But I did it differently. I started with the very small things, because when you start to think about these grand goals, your mind immediately tells you that it can be done. You're not good enough, or you don't have that financial background, or you're not good looking enough, or you have the wrong parents, you're in the wrong country, you have the wrong religion. So all these things start to pop up. And what happens is that you start self-doubt. And when you have self-doubt, actually nothing can really be created, because it's two opposite energies in your mind battling to each other. One say, I want this, and the other part of the brain saying, you can do it. And it's very hard to get anything in life when you have these opposite effects, right?
Agreed 100%. What I find interesting though, because I know there's a number of people who can relate to you right now. You said you're like, I need money. I don't need a book. How often have you found it that the solution to the challenges that you're facing come in a form that you weren't expecting?
Every single time. We just have to be open-minded, and because we don't know how things are giving to us, and if we only focus on one area, we start to say no to the others, because all problems and things that come into you, I believe they're opportunities in disguise. We just have to see it from another angle. Okay, sometimes it can be something greater than you already thought. If I would have given $1 million on that beach, I probably will be back on that beach within a year after I spend it all. But I was given knowledge instead, and that's much more powerful than any money in the world, because you can then have to control it.
Yeah, no, and I get that. And what's interesting to me is that you're willing to state that, because there's a lot of people who feel like, yeah, if I just had the money. I hear this all the time. You know, Jay, I would do more real estate if I just had the money. If I just had the money, I could get this done. If my business would totally take off if I just had X, Y, and Z. There's always a blank for us. How have you handled that temptation to fill that blank, that my next step, if I just had this, then I'll be there?
Well, everyone has that, right? And that's why we never really keep on moving, because we're always waiting for that perfect moment or getting that certain thing before we take the first step, or we're waiting for anyone that comes and help us. But there is never really the perfect moment. We just have to get on going and take the first step, take action to it. Most times we don't know the path, we don't know the way, we don't know how it's going to happen, but we just have to take the steps and actions into believing it will happen. And if you want $1 million, go and talk to people that already acquired it. How did they do it? How did they think about money? How did they think about cash flow? What is wealth management? How is it to invest money? And all this is a study, and that's what we don't learn in school, right? And that's something we should learn by ourselves, but also always socialize with people that already have what you want, and that's the quickest way to success, right?
But Andres, there's a lot of people who they've heard those things, and yet they're still having trouble dealing with the uncertainty that lies ahead when taking these chances. Where'd you get the courage to do that?
I didn't. I was terrified every time.
Yes, I love it.
I was terrified because most people are afraid to take that step, because we're afraid to fail. We're afraid what other people will think about us. We're afraid to lose something. But every single success, most people never try it, and that's why they never get the results. But start with baby steps. Start just taking one step in front of the other, and the path will reveal itself. I know it sounds a cliche, and then most people have heard it, but have they really tried it? That's the big question.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Now, when you're if you're coming from a state of homelessness, and if we're thinking, zero sum thinking, you could have chosen to exercise your genius in any industry whatsoever, and you could have chosen to do so anywhere in the world. So my question is very simple. Why real estate development? Why Thailand?
Well, then I have to take you back. When I'm really originally from Sweden, Stockholm. I was brought up there, and I never really liked being in a cold country with almost no sun and,
yes.
snow all the time. So I knew that I was better than this. Something was telling me that I should find my own luck, and I wanted to live in a tropical country. I didn't really know where it was, but I never felt good. I always felt depressed, and I was not supposed to be there. So one thing led to another, and I always felt that way in Sweden. And my grandfather died, and I got to inherit $2,000. And at that time, I had a telemarketing job. I was making 200-300 phone calls a day, and I was not making enough to book a flight ticket, because I have to pay all my my bills and whatever day-to-day living, right? So when he died, I inherited $2,000, because I'm not from a wealthy family. But that was my way out. So I actually took that $2,000. I went to a travel agent and I said, where in the world can this $2,000 bring me to? And everyone was opposing that, family, friends. They said, you shouldn't leave. You should be here. You should get an education. You should get a better job. Save that money here. Don't leave everything. But I took that big leap of faith. And that's what I'm saying. Sometimes you just have to take a leap of faith. You don't need to see the whole stairway. And that's what I did. And the travel agent told me, with this money, you can come to Thailand. It's enough for a one-way ticket to Thailand. That's a tropical paradise. And she started to show me pictures of that travel catalog, right? And it looks great with white sandy beaches, blue oceans, coconut palm trees. So I said, yes, we'll book it. And that's how I left from Sweden, left everything behind, and I ended up in Thailand, Phuket.
Interesting. Now, were there any concerns about, I've never been there. I don't speak the language. What is the food like? What am I going to do? Where I'm going to live? Any of those things come up?
Every single minute, of course. It was, I was terrified because I didn't know anyone there. I didn't know the language. I didn't know the culture. I didn't know what's going to happen. I just needed to know that it was a big leap of faith. And the only one that actually gave me the courage was my mother in a young age, because I left when I was 20 years old. And she told me, if everything goes wrong and everything goes as you don't expect it, you know that my door is always open and you're welcome back. So that was the last words she told me before I left. And it was encouraging enough to know that sometimes if everything falls apart, you can actually go back from where you started. It's just a stepping stone. Failures are not always bad. Failures are actually something that can teach you something. So we need to learn that too. We're always afraid of failure, but failure is a part of life to make us stronger, strengthen us, and see things from other perspective. I know it sounds easy for me now, but I started also failing every single time.
Yeah, but you gotta love moms, though. They have this way of saying the right thing.
I agree. I don't know if I would have left if she would have told me that. Yeah.
Something about that. It's just, they just know these are the words you need to hear, and now you can go stand on them and move forward. So, okay, I get Thailand, and I get how you ended up there. Now, when you get there, you're coming from doing telemarketing. How did you end up in the real estate world?
Okay, well, as soon as I arrived in Thailand, I knew that I was down to my last $100, and I knew I needed to find a job, and that was quick. And at that time, people need to understand that I was thinking in completely two different ways. At that time, coming to Thailand, I was a firm believer that life just happens to you and you're not in control of it. You live day by day, and whatever happens to you, it's nothing you can control. And I thought that was life, and I just was living day by day and thought that tomorrow it's another day, so let's just live it for the day, right? Today I believe in something completely different. But I got my first job in Thailand for a hotel, inviting people in, getting a presentation of the holiday packages and accommodations and all that. But with that kind of mindset, I was always using the funds to being out partying, spending it on just daily pleasures and stuff like that, right? And spending more than I should do, and trying to eat in these restaurants that I couldn't afford. So with that kind of mindset, it led that I couldn't pay my rent for that tiny little apartment I have in Thailand. So 4 months of unpaid rent, living day by day, and spending it on with people that was like-minded, and partying all the time. It led that 4 police officers actually came and threw me out because I was late 4 months with the rent. So that's how I ended up in the beach.
Interesting. Okay. Now, many would say that's okay. Yeah, that's an interesting situation. You're finding yourself in a foreign country, and this is where you are. What gives you the courage, dare I say the audacity? Many people would not go, I'm going to go do real estate development from that stage. But you did. Hey guys, thanks for listening as always, and I'm glad that you continue to support with each and every download and subscription and share. One of the things that I want to ask you, though, is where are you listening to me from right now? I know some of you, maybe you're on a treadmill, maybe you're washing dishes, maybe you're walking that dog, and some of you are actually in a vehicle driving right now. One of the fun things that you can do, get some of your time back, is begin to living a car-free existence. But even then, it can be a little complicated. So one of the things that I want you to do is I want you to go over to Zipcar. Go to joinzipcar.com/cashflow diary. It's a way that I am able to still go get a car just for a few hours, very, very simply, so that if I have a lot of errands to run and sheets to drop off and running to the short-term rentals, or if I just want to go for a long trip up to LA and back, etc., I can rent a car for a very, very short period of time. And the cool part is I don't even have to pay for any gas. Again, go to joinzipcar.com/cashflow diary.
Well, I mean, after I was homeless, and I was, like I said, I was too ashamed, and I had the guilt to call back to my family or my mother or anyone back home and tell them that I failed hard and I failed hard in life. And I couldn't do it because everyone was telling me not to go in the first place, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I came to think of a friend, and I told him, well, I called that friend after several days on the beach, and I told him, I'm in a very bad situation, and I will need some help. Can you send me some money? I'm homeless on a beach, and I'll promise I'll pay you back as soon as I can. And he said, no, I don't have it. And I understand it because I haven't called him for a year, and suddenly I pop up from anywhere and asking for money. I mean, I understand. He said, no, but he said, well, I won't send you money, but I will send you a book that might cheer you up. And imagine how I felt when he said that.
You were probably, I would have been mad. Like, dude, I didn't ask for a book.
I don't need a book right now. But
right? I don't have a light to turn it on to read at night. What are you talking about?
So, yeah, I was very sad and upset. But anyway, he sent me that email, and I had that $1 to print out the book in a PDF form. And I said, well, instead of just sitting here and feeling sorry for myself, I just might read it, and I can focus my mind a few hours a day into something else. But the more and more I started to read, the more frustrated I become because I didn't believe in any of that. So anyway, I'll put forward a little bit of a couple of days later in the book says that you need to take massive action to anything you want. And because most people believe that if they believe strong enough in what they want, they're going to get it, but they forget the action part. So I started to ask every single hotel, resort, restaurant, bar, or whatever in Phuket again for a better paying job. And I was getting rejected day after day and time after time. But suddenly one company gave me the chance, and it was a real estate agency. So they put me outside their office with their invitation cards and asked them, well, try to get people inside the door so they can get a real estate presentation. And if they buy, we'll pay you some commission. So that was actually the job I got. It was, I don't know, some people say it was a coincidence that I ended up in real estate, or if it was created, but I talk about that in my book. But anyway, that was the job I got. And from that day on, I understood that if I follow these certain principles with mindset and visualization and taking action, and don't be afraid to fail, right? Then a lot of great things will happen to you. And also finding role models was my next step in that. I started to see these real estate agents with nice cars. They had always a nice suit on. They were always smiling. They seemed to have a great life, right? And they became my role models. So I thought I want to be like them. And I started to act like them and talk like them and walk like them and pretend to be them. So I did that for a long period of time. And finally, I actually got promoted within the real estate agent to be a sales agent. And from that on, I went into the real estate market, and I started to build myself up. And from real estate agent, I became a sales manager. And after sales manager, they promoted me to sales director. And after that, when I was leading the whole sales department in that real estate agency, I had enough funds to start my own company. And the first company I ever started was a real estate agency in Thailand, for the funds I have acquired and saved.
Okay, now this leads us to a really great point, because see, there's a lot of people who have had a very similar journey in the sense that they started working for someone else and they take to it and they find out that they've got a talent there and they do well. They get promoted through the ranks and they're doing well, and they probably have some money set aside, all this other stuff. But you were willing to, quote unquote, risk it all and still go do your own thing. And there's a lot of people who don't have that courage or are looking for that inspiration and courage to make that happen. Where did that come from for you?
That's a great question. And most people, I call it the big leap of faith, because we need to cut all our bridges behind. And if you study,
but hold on, Andres, here's what I'm saying. You already had, everything was normal at this point. That you didn't have a reason. What prompted you to leave what many would consider to be a comfortable situation? Okay, you didn't have to go do something else, but you still chose to do this. That takes a lot of faith. Where does that come from?
Well, it's from reading all this. The most fantastic and most successful people in the world, and you will see that everyone has done the same. They have taken massive risks, and massive risks actually leads to the greatest the greatest successes also. But yes, most people don't do it, and some people fail a lot. So my biggest leap of faith was leaving my country to a foreign country. And then I started to build myself up. Everyone has different situations or families or jobs or whatever. But I usually compare it with the story about the Japanese captain with their 5,000 men army. When he went ashore to a beach and he suddenly realized that he had an army of 10,000 as an enemy, and what he did, that he actually burned all his boat that he arrived with, and he told his men that we either have one chance to get out of here. We either die or we win, and they actually won. It's a true story. It's a metaphor of how you produce all these things in your mind as well.
Yeah, no, and I get that. I just think there's something special there, because there's a lot of people who aim for a comfortable situation, which you had, and yet you said, somewhere in you said, you know what, that's not enough, or I'm capable of more, let's go for it. And you did. And
yeah. And you know what I think is that we all have a comfortable situation, and we call it the comfort zone. And it's great to have it, but most of the people that have it several years, after a while, they start dying inside because they feel like they're not moving forward. They're doing same thing day after day, day after day. We all have goals, we all have vision, we all have desires that we want to do, acquire, or experience. It doesn't need to be that. I don't mean that making a lot of money or being that millionaire or billionaire, it's going to make you happy. Some people just want to be home and take care of their kids. Other people want to paint paintings for the rest of it. We all have different wants, right? But it's to do those wants that creates success. Success doesn't mean that you're a millionaire. Success is doing the things that make you happy, right?
Mm. Agreed. I consider every day a success where I've gotten the freedom to do whatever it is I've chosen to do that day, and that's enough. But and I just think it's amazing, because there's a lot of people who are inspired by the fact, I mean, they feel trapped by their good job. You know, they feel like, hey, I've got everything. How crazy, that would be crazy of me to go after actually something that I want. And yet you've done exactly that. And I think that's something that a lot of people need to hear.
Absolutely. But I didn't start with thinking about these grandiose things that I want to achieve. I started with small things. And it could be that visiting that certain city or meeting that certain person or reading that certain book or buying that certain piece of clothes. Because as soon as I started to do these goal settings of the things that I want to have, and I started to acquire them, I was, well, if I can acquire these small things because of the certain principles, writing it down with goals and dates and believing in it, if I can get these small things, doesn't mean it works for bigger things. So I started to do it the same with the bigger goals and desires. And the answer was absolutely yes. But we always have to start with small things to get the confidence and build up the belief and the courage to go after bigger things. So I always start small. And most people say, think big and and think that you're going to have these massive dreams. But I don't think it works that way. Start with smaller things, because that will give you the courage to do this massive shift.
Yeah. And I get that. Small steps, build that momentum, if you will, towards the bigger things that by the time you get to those quote unquote bigger things, they probably don't even feel like bigger things. They just feel like the next step in your journey.
Yeah.
So when it comes down to it today, when you look at the real estate market, as you look at it, do you still see like loads of opportunity everywhere, or how are you seeing the real estate market change given technology and just the environment that's going on?
Well, it's a shift in anything, but it's also depends on the geographical locations and what country and what cities and what people are accommodated. If it's for residential people or citizens, or if it's for people that comes to visit as tourists. And with the new technology, I mean, we just shifted we can now show apartments remotely with VR systems, and people feel that they're already there. We do presentations and tours around the property itself with just a mask on your head. So everything is getting easier and easier to show people. Instead, they don't actually physically need to see us anymore.
Yeah, I kind of like that idea. I mean, the ability to be there without physically being there. So have you guys been able to leverage VR a significant amount to actually make sales?
We're selling apartments with VRs online now without the clients actually visiting it all. So yeah, it does work.
Interesting. Now, when the clients that you guys end up with, are they mostly, locals? Are they from out of the area? I'm just curious to who's looking to live in Thailand. I mean, I've never said it to myself, but having, looked at your website and some of the properties you've built, I'm like, dude, those look really nice.
Appreciate that, Jay. Well, I mean, our clientele is vast. Many people that buy our properties, they want to come and live in Thailand, or they're retired and they want to be there, or they just come a few weeks a year and they want to use it. And some others, they just buy it for investment. They actually don't live in the unit at all, because we guarantee certain returns on any properties we build. And some people just use it as investment vehicles. And we have Chinese, Russians, Europeans, Americans from all over the world under our clientele.
Interesting. Now, given everything that you've done, knowing what you know today, I mean, at first you were limited by money. He's like, hey, I've got $2,000, a travel agent. You're asking them, hey, where can I go? And they're like, Thailand. Now that you have more resources, you've had more opportunity to see the world and be a part of it, would you still choose Thailand knowing everything you know today?
Well, I've been there 16 years now, and I love every single day that I wake up there. It's been my home, and it made me who I am today. So I love the Thai country. I love the culture. I love the people, and I don't believe I would be the person today if I didn't reside in Thailand. And yes, it will always be my base and my home, and I have my family there. But I'm always open to new opportunities, and I am in America right now to see what other opportunities might arise. So I'm always open-minded to new things that happen. So it's important to always have your eyes open for new things. You never know when they arrive.
Well, that's actually where I was headed. I was wondering if in given what you've been able to experience, if there was another marketplace that had your interest, were you going to go, you know what, now I'm going to go to Antarctica and do it all again, or something of that nature?
Yeah, well, that's a good question, and I believe that to any action, any wealth, or any progress, you need to study. You need to study the things before you get into it. If you want to buy stocks, make sure to study it so you understand it. If you want to get into real estate, study that, and study the area. So study the people you're going to do it, or the companies and all that. So it's also a feasibility study that you need to do to be able to know what if you're doing something is right or wrong, and go with a gut feeling to it. Because it's the same with success in mind. Study that, and the more you study it, the better you become at it. So in any simple thing, then always read about it and learn about it. I mean, many people, they want to buy stock. They call a broker. They give them the money, but they don't know what they're doing. So I think that teaching yourself first in any industry, it gives you more power to understand it.
Absolutely. Now, you've won awards, or Blue Horizons has won awards for best developer, best mixed use development, best mid-range condo development. And I guess my question to you is, there's nothing in your pedigree that would suggest to me that you were able to do that, but it would suggest that you have the ability to build a team and gather the talent to be able to make that happen. And I would be curious to know, where did that skill set come from?
Wow, I love that you asked that question, because it might sound like Andres Pira, this property developer, has done everything by himself, but I would never ever be in this situation if it wasn't for the amazing teams and people I have around me. I mean, they're the achievers, they're the producers. I'm just the front person, but I'm just the one who inspires and leads them, but they're the one who actually helps me do everything. So behind every major success, it's a team. And that team is that builds your trust and beliefs, and you brainstorm together. So it's always a team effort. It's never an individual thing. So I learned it with trial and errors. I mean, I failed many, many times, but doing it, I learned more and more, and how to lead teams, and how to open different departments and connect them together, and how to control cash flow. And all these things is by experience. You can learn about it in school and read about it in books or go to university, but the real wisdom and the real experience and how to learn it is actually in the making.
Yeah. There's nothing like, on the job training or learning. It's one thing to have it book knowledge. It's another to be out there in the field, being told no day in and day out. So I got to know, what was it like for you? Can take us back to one of the first times when you were trying to get your first development off the ground. You're talking to investors, trying to raise the capital and pull the team together. What was that like? What was the story? How many times did you hear no?
That was the hardest part because I never done it before. I was a newcomer. I never done any development before, and everyone would say, well, it can be done and you can't do it and you're thinking too big. And I couldn't really raise the money because they didn't believe in me. I didn't have the background. So it's always very, very hard in the beginning.
How much, I'm just curious, for context, how much money did this first development, what was that what did that take? What was that?
I started with I'm building developments that are more than 400 to 700 units right now. But the first project I ever did was only 19 units. So I didn't start with massive things. I started with smaller things, and I had to start with smaller things because, of course, you don't need that amount of capital to do it. So, and I remember that before I just become a real estate developer, I did have a successful real estate agency that was producing very well. So that most of the money with my first project, I put it almost all in the first project with 19 houses, a little plot. But I also remember that I was having the real estate agent, so I knew all the developers around on that particular province. I knew what sold and not sold, and I knew what price range to build on and what quality and colors and architects and graphic designers, successful developers were using. So I have access to all of that, of course. And then I got the courage to build my own project and take a little bit of all the developers that are already successful. So I already believed that the project I would do would be successful since I knew what was in demand. So that's why I had the courage to take most of the funds I had to my first project.
Wow. And that I mean, self-funding, that's a whole new level of risk right there. Most people are, I mean, wow. Okay, got it. So
people do say I'm a big risk taker, but I wasn't always like that. So I think that it's one of my principles in the book is to take calculated risks, and any risk you do, make sure to really point them out and write them down and to ask yourself, in worst case scenario, can I handle it or not? So you need to calculate it and make sure you have all the angles of what can happen.
So now I'm really curious. What would you consider, like, if you had the opportunity to talk to your younger self, what would you say to him or her to him that you think would be useful to those listening?
Well, I think it's a cliche or the same, but I would say exactly the same thing that built me up. It doesn't matter where you're from or how you look like or what color of your skin you have or what financial background or what country you come from or if you're tall or short or beautiful or ugly, whatever it is you think it is. It doesn't really matter. It's the images in your head and that spider bit that you need to get to acquire all these things. And don't listen to people that tells you that you can't do this and you can't do that. But the most problem most people have in the world is that they don't know what they want, right? That's why they never get it. So make sure to ask yourself, what makes me happy? Where do I see myself in 5 years? Where do I see myself in 10 years? What is the person I want to become, or what do I want to do that's going to give me joy and happiness, right? And this is the questions that you need to find out for yourself first before you start to execute things, right? Because if you don't know what you want, you're never going to get it.
I like it 100%. I definitely appreciate, the wisdom that you're sharing with us today. Now, for those that have listened this far and want to find out more about what you're up to and follow you and what you guys are creating over there, what's going to be the best way for them to find out more information?
I just released my book. It's an autobiography, and it's called, like you said, Homeless to Billionaire. It's available on Amazon, both on Kindle or the hard copy that I can send to them, and I'll go through this in more details. And also, the big book launch is 18th of April in New York, and there is an amazing thing happening all over New York at 8:15 New York time. So keep tuned, and hopefully people will like it.
No doubt. So as we wind down here, I've got a final question for you. As people have been listening, today, they may have gotten the little bit of extra encouragement that they needed to take that next step, to draw that line in the sand, to go, you know what, I'm going to get started. I can do this. Or maybe they're at, 6 figures and say, you know what, it's time for 7, or they're at 7, it's time for 8. and they're ready, but they're at what I like to call the precipice of decision. Now, Andres, you know, like I know, that when we get to that point, what happens often is that we have a companion, and that companion comes in the form of a voice, and it's a voice that reminds us of why it won't work, how it didn't work last time, and who are you to think you're going to do what? I mean, you're going to go to where and do how on earth is anybody going to, believe in you and give you their money to do anything? And for some people, they're related to that voice. So my question to you is as follows. Let's pretend that this time it's going to be different. They're going to follow through. They're going to do exactly what you suggest, and they're going to do so in the next 24 to 48 hours. What would you suggest that they do?
They will still get that voice in their head saying that it might not be done or it's too hard or whatever. And then we call it limiting belief, and we all have it. We always have the limiting belief that we're not good enough, but you can erase those. You can delete those voices that is telling you not to do it with several principles and actions and teachings. And it's all come down to the subconscious mind. We all have that voice because our subconscious mind believes that it cannot be done, but it's just a belief. You can change that belief with several things, but it takes time. It's action. And it's also thinking and repeating and affirming and doing incantations of the things instead. So and off of programming, that belief will actually disappear. But I'm sorry to say, doesn't disappear in 24 hours or 48 hours. But you can take a step towards it and start doing it, and you will start to see result. I wish we could have that spider bite over 24 hours and delete those, though. But it's a constant training of your subconscious mind. So yeah, but it's step-to-step basis on how to do it, and everyone can. If I can, they can.
I love it 100%. I appreciate your attitude, your tenacity, your ability to take a risk and to risk even some things that people would be like, man, I don't need to. You're willing to risk the comfort to be the best version of yourself. And I definitely want to be the first to say thanks for taking the time to share your knowledge, wisdom, and insight here with us today at the Cashflow Diary, sir.
Well, thank you so much, Jay. And I hopefully that a little bit of what we've been talking about can help other people succeed. And remember what we both talked about. Start with the small things. Build yourself up. Get the confidence. Get the courage. And when you get those small things, then go for middle things. And when they come, go for the bigger thing. But it's a process. It's a process of success. We call it science of achievement. But we'll have to start small. It's the same story with the guy who wins the Olympic medal. He got it because he was training 10, 15 years to get it. And it's the same with your mind, your wealth, and success.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you know what time it is. It's time for you to move at the speed of instruction. What does that mean? That means you probably want to get over to Amazon and pick up a copy of Homeless to Billionaire. Why? Because you know, like I know, that you learned some things today. You were like, man, maybe I do need to take more risks. Man, you know what? I can do this too. I don't have to have a pedigree in order to make it happen. You just heard yet another example of how it can be done, how it is being done. And most importantly, I hope you heard what he said. You can do it. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been fun talking to you today. I look forward to talking to you soon. Until next time.